we're just carrying on from the discussions last week, discussing the Jain concept of reality, substance, dravya. So, right, so just to recap on what we discussed last week. So until now we've really looked at the 6 realities as per the Jain philosophy. Jeev, Ajeev, and within Ajeev you've got 5 subsections. Akash, Pudgal, Kal, Dharmastika and Adharmastika. So this has to be fundamental. This has been repeated in chapter 5 time and time again. So right from when Sandeepa was talking about realities, Ketan Bhai talked about infinity. These are the key concepts which is coming across. That these are the 6 main realities which Jains believe which exist in the entire universe. Not only Earth, no any other planets, is in the entire universe. These are the 6 realities which exist. In a way which is actually quite reassuring, because if you think of all the Greek philosophers of the Middle Ages, this has been a constant curiosity. What's out there in the universe? And once if you have belief in this and faith in this, then you actually then tend to believe that the curiosity of what's out there in the universe is confined to these 6 elements. There is nothing over and above Jeev, Ajeev and all these 5 other elements. So in a nutshell, it's Jeev, which is consciousness. Consciousness could be human forms, and we know as the 4 gatis. And then within Ajeev, Ajeev means non-living. Something which does not have conscience, which is not living. It has got, so it's space, matter, Kal, Dharmastikaya, Adharmastikaya. So these are the 6 main realities. And then last week we also looked at the concept that when it's a reality, is it actually reality or is it a figment of imagination? And as per the Jain philosophy, these 6 realities are actual substances. It's not an illusion. And the fundamental properties of anything which is in existing or reality is 2 things. One is something which is constant, which is known as dravya, and something which keeps on changing. So all these 6 substances above, they all have these 2 things in common. They have got the eternality, something which is eternal, and also it's got modes, something which keeps on changing. So for example, Akash is space. So space is eternal, but within space things can keep on moving. So I'm right now occupying this space here, a moment later I'll occupy another space here. So the modes of the space has changed, but space is always going to remain there. And the same principle applies with time. Time keeps on existing. Time will never end. There was a past, there's a present, there's a future. So the modes will keep on changing, but time as a substance will always be there. Same with Pudgal. That also ties in with the scientific thoughts of the conservation of mass and conservation of energy. Matter cannot be created or destroyed. It can just be transformed. And then same thing with medium of motion, medium of rest. So this is what we discussed last week. So now we look at verse 32. If you just take a moment to read this verse, the determination of substances is done by giving prominence to their indestructible essence and giving a secondary place to their changeable condition as it is necessary for their full consideration. Because the permanent and the changeable aspect, though existing simultaneously, cannot be described simultaneously. Similarly, in other pairs of contradictory characteristics, one must perceive primary and the other secondary consideration. Anyone can explain what this means? What is this verse trying to say? Yeah, Rajeev.
Like this previously, something is constant, within that constant something is changing.
Okay, but that's fine. But what is it saying about something which is primary and something which is secondary? So what's this verse trying to say?
Primary would be, if you take an example, primary would be gold, the changes, it's variety, the different modes would be changing the secondary place.
Okay, you're on the right ballpark figure, but it's not exactly what this verse is actually trying to depict. What it's trying to say, when an entity has opposite attributes, permanent and impermanence, how is communication possible? So let's take an example. Jitu bhai, you got a white shirt. Tame agad aao. So it's a very nice, pristine white shirt. So if I asked you this color, so most of you would agree that this is a white shirt. So if the question was asked, what color is this shirt? What would everyone say? It's white in color. Now, is this statement absolute statement? It isn't. Huh?
Different perspective might be different. Colorblindness and colorblind.
Okay. Colorblind, okay, that's one thing.
One thing.
Okay, the other thing is, suppose I'm serving Jitubai, right? Yeah, I'm serving him some dal, but I just tripped, and suddenly the whole sufuria of dal actually spills over this white shirt. Is this going to be a white shirt color? No. So essentially what it's saying is that this shirt is white in color at this point in time. It's not always going to, it perhaps was not white, it was probably soiled. I mean, you know, you must have put into the washing machine and it's become, or you went to the dry cleaners, it became very, very white. Or in the future, it might not be white. So what's the only thing which we can say that what's constant, what's something permanent about the shirt? If this is a cotton shirt, that cottonness is always going to be remain there. It's not going to become a nylon shirt or any other shirt. So the cottonness of the shirt is something which is permanent. But the color of the shirt, one cannot say that it's always a permanent. Right now it's white, but it could not be white before, or it could not be white later. So in communication, what we need to do is when we communicate with one another, we don't say this very frequently, but at the back of our mind, and especially when you're discussing religious and spiritual thoughts, this has to be very, very true, because whenever you, no, that's fine, thank you. Whenever you're discussing religious principles, it can be open to discussions, be open to debate. And you do not want to be someone who's saying that, this statement of yours, I can now actually disprove you. So for communications, it's very important to understand that what attribute are you talking about? Both those attributes are there. Permanence is there and impermanence is also there in that white shirt. But it's a question of, right now when I'm asking you what color is the shirt, that color, the property of color is something which can keep on changing. So right now, that's something which I'm talking about, something which is a changeable aspect. Whereas if I was asking what is the shirt made of, and if it's a cotton shirt, that shirt is always going to remain a cotton shirt. So that's a permanent aspect of the shirt. The other question which was asked, you can actually see that. So actually someone asked the question to Lord Mahavir, are you living or are you dead? So now can you imagine that if in that question which I'm asking you, are you living or are you dead? Those are two exact opposites. I mean, if you think of it logically, if I'm saying, are you living? How can you be dead? Or if you're dead, then how can you be living? How can you actually have these two opposite terms applicable to the same entity?
Depends on time.
No, not on time. In this exact moment, right now, are you living or are you dead?
Well, it depends, isn't it? If you're talking about the body, it's,
Yeah.
the soul is not there and the body is dead.
No, but right now I'm talking, so I'm living.
Yes.
So am I living or am I dead? You are living. And the actual answer is I'm living and I'm dead, because within me I've got probably dead skin cells. So which is part of me, it's an integral part of me that I might have some that's why this lady is doing all this face pack to remove all this so the answer is that yes, both the aspects of livingness and being dead is both applicable to me at the same time. But it's now which aspect are you looking about? Obviously in terms of my soul and everything, yes, from that perspective I'm living, but even the fact that I'm dead, yes, part of my body, there might be certain dead living cells, or other aspects are actually dead. So two contradictory terms are applicable to the same entity at the same time, and that's what it is. So when communication is there, yes, you say I'm living from the perspective that I've got a soul, but from the perspective of that I've got a body and then might have some dead cells. So which perspective am I talking about? And that's where it becomes when you have two opposite terms, which perspective are you taking into consideration? And so that's basically what it's saying. And so if I illustrate that a bit further, every reality, as we see, has got a permanent aspect of it, and it's got an impermanent aspect of it. And it's like a seashore. That if you're actually going to be focusing on something which is permanent, then or if you're going to be talking about the impermanent, the permanent is there, but it's in the background. You're not talking about the permanent part. You are now just focusing. So if I'm saying which color is the shirt, it's white, I'm talking about the mode of the shirt. But I'm not disproving that the shirt is made out of cotton or of some other property. The permanent aspect of it is actually at the bottom. So it's like which part are you talking about? And if I'm now talking about the quality of the shirt, it's a cotton shirt, a nylon shirt, then the permanent part of it is actually coming to prominence, and the modes actually then comes secondary. So that's the verse which was trying to say that whenever you're discussing any entity, certain aspects, permanent aspects become at the forefront. When I'm discussing, maybe I'm discussing more about the permanent part of things, or am I discussing about the modes? So let's look at some 3 other examples. If I'm talking about water, so water we know is a substance. It's a permanent, and water has got different modes, solid, liquid and gas. So if I'm now talking about the properties of water, water is a universal solvent. It doesn't matter whether it's solid, whether it's liquid, it's a gas, water is a universal solvent. So at that stage, I'm talking about the substance part, that's in the foreground. And the modes become secondary. If I'm now talking about a particular aspect of water, whether it's a solid state or a liquid state or a gas state, then I'm talking about the modes, which becomes the primary, and the permanent aspect of it becomes secondary. Same thing with gold. We can take, okay, gold has got certain properties. Gold has got a melting point, boiling point. This is the atomic mass of gold. So these are generic properties of gold, and so that's becoming the permanent part of it. And the different modes of gold, necklace, ring, earrings are secondary. So this is now let's look at soul. So when you're looking at the soul point of view, we can talk about that. What is the true nature of a soul? Infinite knowledge, bliss, intuition, energy. So these are generic across all soul forms, whether it's a human birth, angels, animals, plants. These are generic properties across all souls. But then, so that's looking at the permanent nature of the soul. And then if you look at the modes, then it's different, whether it's a human, animal, hellish, angelic beings. So this is what the verse is trying to say, that we've got a reality. A reality has got 2 aspects to it, something which is permanent and something which is changing. Both these aspects are in the same reality, and when you're discussing or communicating, it really depends which one is in focus. Any questions, or is it clear? Yeah? Okay. So in this, if this is understood, this leads us to an important philosophical hallmark of the Jain philosophy. This concept really leads to Naya, Syadvada, Saptabhangi and Anekantvada. These are huge topics by themselves, and all what I'll do is just trying to give a very brief overview of what we mean by some of these terms. So Naya actually means viewpoint. So that's a literal how Naya translates into a viewpoint. So how many kinds of viewpoints are there? Naya, it's Dravyarthik Naya and Paryarthik Naya. Now sometimes, when we're giving these talks here, it's also nice to know the Sanskrit or the Prakrit words. So that's why we've been using the word Dravya and Paryay. So if you just look at these 2 Nayas, it should become fairly obvious to you that we have talked about Dravya, which means substance, and substance has got the eternal part of it. And Paryay means modes. So if you look at water, water is Dravya, and Paryay means liquid, ice, and solid, liquid and gas. So when we discussing anything, Dravyarthik Naya means from a very substantial point of view, and substantial means from an eternal point of view, something which is eternal aspects. And Paryarthik means something which are going to be changing. Now this is very important. So if you look at the Jain scriptures, many Digambar texts, especially of Acharya Kumkum, Samaysar, Niyamsar, all these texts talk primarily about the true nature of the soul. They are folk, and so therefore these texts are talking about the nature of the soul from a Dravyarthik point of view. It's like idealistic point of view. So soul is very pure, but right now my soul is not pure. But yes, we are talking about something which is from a substantial point of view, that all souls are pure. Right now, it might not be pure because we are either a human or animal or a plant, so that's looking at the Paryarthik point of view. But those texts are talking about the actual fundamental qualities of the soul. So if you have actually got a text which is going to be discussing about the code of conduct of sadhus, sadhus should walk like this, they should eat like this, they should do this, that's not looking at the fundamental quality of the soul. That's looking at a particular aspect. So those will be the Paryarthik Naya. So many Shvetambara texts which talk about the codes of conduct of monks and nuns and lay people such as us, then those texts don't fall under the Dravyarthik name, they fall under the Paryarthik name, because they're talking about certain modes. Yes, I'm a human should behave like this. So that classification becomes very, very clear. So what does Naya mean? It's a non-absolutist standpoint. This is also very, very interesting, because if you look at English language, and I think if you even, I think I was just listening to Theresa May the other day, the word we use absolute very, very frequently. Even in our day-to-day conversation, absolutely this should be like this. But if you really think of it, nothing is absolute. Everything is relative. There are very few things which are absolutely absolute. So even in our day-to-day language, when you're even talking to someone, or when in our workplace or with anyone, we tend to use the word absolutely like this. The weather is absolutely brilliant. Well, it's not absolutely brilliant. If it's absolute, the weather will not change. It's going to remain like this forever and ever. So the weather cannot be absolutely brilliant. Obviously, it's become more like a slang term, but it is quite important to realize that when we talk Jain, this leads to the question of relativity. So it takes into consideration a single attribute of object which possesses infinite attributes. So that's what Naya is saying, that one object has got infinite attributes. It's got so many attributes, but when I'm talking about the color, then I'm not talking about the shape. So I'm just talking about one aspect of this right now. So it might have got many other views, but right now I'm just focusing on the color and at this particular instant in time. But it has got infinite attributes. So the question comes, how is it relevant to us in our day-to-day life? This concept of Naya, okay, fair enough, it's got a very noble view that we look at scriptures and then we can decide. But how is this relevant to us? Yes.
Understanding other people's viewpoint.
Nischaya Vyavhar. I think we can have a separate topic on Anekantvada. Anekantvada is also a very misunderstood term, because, for example, in a very layman's language, Anekantvada, what most people believe is that everyone's views are correct, or we should be tolerant of everyone's views. So I might believe in something, you might believe in something else, and we should all be sort of considering, okay, my views are right from my perspective, your views are right from your perspective, which in the strictest sense is not quite correct. What it really essentially means that, yes, we are open to other people's views, but truth is truth. So for example, a very common example is saying, is it necessary to go to war? Is war good? And the fundamental answer is, yes, from a particular perspective, to defend my country, to defend my family, war might be the only choice possible. And it might be necessary to engage in war. But the ultimate thing is, any war, if there's going to be any loss of life, that can never be good. So war fundamentally can never ever be good. So if you're in a discussion and if you're debating, should Tony Blair have waged a war on Iraq? Yes or no? And there could be different reasons. But the fundamental answer is that war can never be good. Because war will lead into violence and there'll be loss of life, whether innocent or otherwise. So from that perspective, but it might be necessary for certain reasons to defend a country and for whether justified or unjustified. So Anekantvada, so when you're actually having a discussions and discussing, one cannot say, from an Anekantvada point of view, yes, we should go to war or we should not go to war. You might have your reasons on based on other judgments, but you can't just purely say on Anekantvada. Anekantvada says war is not right because war will lead to loss of life, but there might be other reasons which might justify that, yes, we might need to go to war or not. But what this generally really leads to in our day-to-day life is, for example, one thing is that, for example, if I believe that I've got a soul, so if I believe in that, then I also believe is that just as I like happiness and I don't like pain or suffering, so that means that this same substance, soul, is the same as in you and in all other life forms here. So if I then start believing in that Marama Atma che, bija badal Atma che, which means then I'll actually become much more tolerant and loving to other living beings, because Manije Thai che, then it's also applicable to you. So from that point of view, it really expands on this, and what parameter are we looking at? The substantial point of view. Yes, you might have some flaws, I might have some flaws. That is given. But we are now looking at the soul, which is pure in the intrinsic sense, because right now my soul is not pure, your soul is not pure. But we are looking at the purity of the soul, that yes, it's got the potential. And from that point of view, I understand that all of us are the same, not only us, but all other life forms, animals, plants, and all other life forms. So it then really leads us to be kind of a very balanced, ecologically friendly religion. Obviously, then you got people discussing whether it's 4 or 3. Then, it depends on the perspective. Some people saying, is this a black ball or a white ball? So those are different perspectives, and there's no point getting agitated based on this. The other diagram is trying to show that Maslow, he's got a pyramid of hierarchy, and what he's trying to say is that every single person, humans, first of all, they need the physiological needs. They need their food, water, and housing. And that's applicable to all. And that exactly brings us to the same concept. Mane jem ghar joye che, mane jem khawanu joye che. As I also need some security, everyone else needs the same. So whether people in Somalia, people in Syria, all these people, they all are really looking for some basic amenities. Forget about the luxury and the comforts, but the basic amenities which I need, everyone else needs in the entire universe, and everyone's actually seeking to have those actually bare minimum. Then actually you can start looking at other things. I need a nice, better job. I now need to have bigger, better car, house. All that becomes much more secondary. And again, so if you look at this, where does this concept come in? The substantial or the eternal part of things, substantial. What's good for me, it's good for others. Everyone else needs that. Then when you go on the higher side, there could be some differences. Now that leads us to an interesting thing. Whenever we greet each other, we generally say namaste. Now, if you really think of it, nam, it means to bow down. And it's the same prefix which is being used in the Nokar mantra. So when we say Namo Arihantanam, Namo Siddhanam, Namo Ayariyanam, doesn't it make you realize, how can I actually be saying namaste to you? Why am I bowing down to you and keeping you in the same place as the Nokar mantra? Because there I'm bowing down to all the Panch Parmeshtis. Here I am Nam Aste. So I'm also bowing down to yourself. So when I'm saying namaste, anyone can understand or think of why use the word namaste? Why actually should I bow down to you? We all know that I've got flaws, you've got flaws. So why would you want to bow down to me, and why would I want to bow down to you?
It's a soul.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the potential
Yeah,
of that soul to become.
that's correct. Yeah, that's correct. So essentially, namaste essentially means I'm bowing down to the divinity within you. So that's in a way how it loosely translates namaste. So when I'm saying namaste to you, or when you're saying namaste to me, I'm actually bowing down to the divinity, the pureness in you, and you're doing the same likewise to me. And that's, when we sing namaste, we're really looking at it from a Tattvarthic point of view. That we are acknowledging that you have got flaws, I've got flaws. So I'm not taking that into consideration right now when I'm bowing down to you. Because otherwise, why would I want to bow down? If you've got flaws, it doesn't merit me to give respect to you. But that's secondary right now. And now I'm saying that I'm actually bowing down to the divinity within you. So I'm now looking at really from the Dravya point of view, saying, yes, let's put all the differences aside, let's put all the flaws aside, let's just look at the divinity within each of us. And so that's where the namaste comes in. So a practical application of this Naya. So this now leads us, so Naya is perspective, and to summarize, Naya could be 2 points of view, Dravyartic Naya and Paryartic Naya. Dravyartic Naya is, I'm looking at a perspective looking from eternal aspect, and the Paryartic Naya is, I'm taking a perspective from a model of something with a changing perspective. So which Naya am I talking about? So 2 main Nayas. It actually even is divided into much more others, but we wouldn't get into that. That's, we'll look at that later. Syadvada. Now, Syat means relative. When I was looking at the internet, some people have actually translated Syadvada as perhaps. And when we look at what these terms means, that's actually not quite right. Syat cannot be, because what it means is, when I'm saying a statement from a particular perspective, it's like this. If I change that word, not from a particular perspective, but if I say, perhaps it is this, then you actually start wondering, if I'm saying perhaps this is a chair, perhaps this is a table, that means I'm not sure. So if you're not sure, that means that your philosophy is quite weak. Because, I mean, is this a chair or not? Perhaps it's a chair, perhaps it's this. And so therefore, some of the early translations of the word Syat was perhaps is wrong. It's not perhaps, it's from a particular perspective. So right now, is this a chair? Yes, from right now it's a chair, but it could be broken down, and then later on it could be something else. But from right now, from this particular perspective, it is a chair. So at this particular instance. So Syat is something which is to do with how do you express relativity. So as we look at the example of Jitubai, what color is this? From right now, at this particular instance in time, this is a white shirt. So that's Syat. So, and we'll see its application when you come to Sapta Bhangi. So what is Sapta Bhangi? Sapta means 7 and Bhangi means divisions. So Syadvada can be broken down into 7 subdivisions. So what are the 7 divisions? Syat Asti. So Syat means from a particular perspective it is. So Asti means it is. Syat Nasti or Nasti. From a particular perspective it is not. It's very common. We sometimes say Nastik. You know what that Nastik means? So Nasti means does not exist. So Nastik means someone who does not believe in the existence of soul. So so if you believe in the existence of soul, so okay, fine, you're astic. But if you do not believe in the existence of a soul, you're a nastic. So nastic. So nastic is not like a derogatory term, but all what it means is that this particular person does not believe in the existence of soul. So nasti. So that's where it comes. Nasti. It is not.
Heretic. It's a heretic, isn't it?
Yeah, heretic. Yeah. He's a non-believer.
Yeah.
But so nasti means it is not.
It is.
So if I can say, is this a chair? Asti. It is a chair. But that means it is not a table or it's something else. So you can say this is a chair, but it's not a table. So is not becomes nasti. It is not. Syat asti nasti. So it is not. So in English it's very simple. From a particular perspective it is. From a particular perspective it is not. From a particular perspective it is and it is not. The fourth one, Syat Avyaktya. It's inexplicable, is inexpressible. Then you go to 3 more. It is and inexplicable. So Asti and Avyaktya. Nasti and Avyaktya. So it is not and inexplicable. And it is not and it is inexplicable. So it sounds very confusing, and we'll look at an example of how this is used in its actual application. Now, what does Avyaktya mean? So let me just read what Acharya Mahapragya has explained. When we have the existence of the present mode, we have the non-existence of the future mode at the same time. So let's look at it right now. In the present mode, we are sitting in an SCVP class. That means you're not sitting on your sofa at home. So at this present mode, the existence we have the existence of you sitting in the SCVP class, but you are not sitting at your sofa in the home. Both cannot be simultaneously expressed. Well, I cannot say you are here in the SCVP class and you are at home sitting on the sofa at the same time. Right now, you cannot be at both places. We have therefore to take resort to the third alternative of unspeakability. This is the limitation of the language, that though both can be known simultaneously, yet they cannot be expressed simultaneously. So let's just take an example of what he's trying to say. Thankfully, we are in the summer months, so we don't experience it. But in the winter months, do most of us experience this? Under the weather, headache, fever, runny nose, cough, sore throat, body ache, tiredness. If you went to the doctor and you went to the doctor and said, I'm not feeling well. So the doctor will ask you, okay, what's wrong with you? You will say, I've got a headache, I've got this and other. Now, all these different ailments, are they happening to you at the same time or one after? Is it like a railway stage? Pehla mane mathu dukhe chhe, have mathu mati gyu, have mane fever thyu chhe. Fever jatu ryu, have pachi runny nose chhe. Is it all simultaneously or is it one after the other? Simultaneously. However, are you able to explain to your doctor, so can you relate all this to your doctor absolutely right now? What's exactly happening to you? So all you're experiencing, your reality is that all this is happening to you right now. Not one after the other, not like 1 minute this is hurting, next minute this is hurting, then it's fine, it's sequential. But at this moment in time, all these 10, 20, 30 things are happening to you right now, but can you express them to the doctor or anyone, to someone? So that's a limitation of language, that I can't explain everything to you, it's inexplicable. If he says, can you just tell me straight away in one one word or just one sentence or one short sentence what's happening to you. You can't. Mane mathu dukhe che, mane aa thai che, ulu thai che, aa pag dukhe. It's going to be one after the other. So the limitation of language means that when you have got so many attributes of an entity, if you have to explain that in one instance, you can't. This has got so many. In one instance, I cannot talk to you about the color, the shape, what's electronics within it. In just one way, I can't. But the reality is that everything is there in this, right? Everything is in there. The color, the shape. But to express that to you, I can't express all that, so many attributes in just quick. And that's for the reason why even if Bhagwan Mahavir is giving his Dashna, Bhagwan Mahavir has got Keval Gnan, he's got infinite knowledge. But yet, because of the limitation of the language, he can't express all that infinite knowledge to us. That's why the scriptures coming and he's explaining to he has got that knowledge at that instant in time. He knows everything, the past, the present, and the future. But with that knowledge, you still can't explain that to others because of the limitation of language. Because you need infinite time. If I know infinite things, I need infinite time to explain that to you. So that's one application. So now let's look at this. A doctor, so now this guy goes to the doctor, and let's look at where these 7 divisions, how they are put into practice. A doctor treats him. The relatives of the sick person ask the doctor 7 questions. The doctor replies in 7 ways. And these 7 ways are really to make you understand this. Syat asti, syat nasti, and these are the 7 divisions which we are going to explain. And what they are, it is not, it is not, Syadvada, it's inexplicable, it is, and it is inexplicable, it is not inexplicable, it is not, and it is inexplicable. So these are the 7 ways. So the doctor asks him, how is his health? The doctor says his health is good. So that's fine, it is good. It's a very positive affirmation. The other way the doctor says is, his health is not good. It is not, so is not. So that's, it's not. The other way is, it is better than yesterday, but it is not better than what one can hope for. Asti nasti. It is and it is not. It is better than yesterday, but it is not better than what can hope for. Number 4, it is impossible to say. There are so many tests to be done. I just cannot say. Looking at his reports right now, it's impossible to say whether he's healthy or he's not healthy. So I just cannot say. There's just so many parameters. Our body is very complex, and it's very difficult for a doctor to tell you exactly, is he better, is he not? I cannot explain to you. It's inexplicable. It is better than what it was yesterday, asti, but one cannot say what will happen. So it's inexplicable. It is better, so it is, and it is inexplicable. It is not better than what it was yesterday, but one cannot say what will happen. So it is not and inexplicable. And the last one, it is not good, nasti, but it is better than yesterday. So that's the asti, the positive part, but one cannot say what's going to happen. So it is not, and it is inexplicable. You might think that this is becoming very important, because if you can remember, in the Middle Ages, there were a lot of debates between different scholars of different faiths, Hindus and Jains and Buddhists, and it was very, very prevalent during that time that whose ideologies were correct, and if the king really got justified, they used to impress the king, that their philosophies, and they really needed to have some very logical and ground, and they had to resort to all these kind of different tools to make sure that they were not disproved. Okay. Let's look at this. There is a Professor Narendra Bhandari. Last week I briefly alluded to light has got a dual nature. Light can be particles or there can be waves. Now particles means there's a door there. If we all were light particles, photons, and if we had to leave through the door, we have to then be in one file, one after the other we have to go. So that's simple. That we can, and the laws of mechanics can be applicable. I'm a particle, I've got a mass, I need to go there, so that all the physical laws and the physical equations can be applicable. Now, light can also be a wave. Now, if you look at waves, so you can have all these different waves here. So look how this professor has used this Saptapangi principle and made it applicable to the particle-wave duality. Because of the particle-wave duality, the particle can be in compartment A. So if light is a particle, it can be in A, or it can be in B. However, what he's trying to say is if you look at, if each particle of light has got two natures. So in one instance of time, I'm a particle, you come and measure me, but straight away, my other nature is that I'm a wave. So if you, at the moment you come to measure me, I'm not there. I'm actually become a wave. So both those realities are there. So sometimes the scientist can come and say, I know there is a particle of light here. Let me take an instrument and let me measure. I can detect a photon in particle A. But sometimes he goes and says, yeah, it is there. And he goes and it's not there. Because the particle has actually become a wave. So it is there, it is not there. And what he's saying is because of the particle wave duality, the particle can be in compartment A or in compartment B, in A and still not in A. The particle is in A, but because it's got the wave nature means that he's going to detect it, he can't find it, it's not there. In B and still not in B, not in A and not in B, in A as well as in B, and in an indeterminate state. I can't explain. Let's just look at it from another point of view. Let's just say that particles of light is a wave. And as you can see, as a wave, you can detect, you can see that it's got these patterns. But between those patterns, there is a gap. Because if you drop a stone in water, you'll see ripples of water. There's one ripple, then there's a gap, there's another ripple, and then there's a gap. So in between that, is water there or not there? It's inexplicable. So, it becomes quite difficult to understand, but if you think of it, this is how actually even some of the people are actually using these principles to science. Now, can you imagine that right now we've just been discussing that verse 32 and just been expanding on it. So some of these verses are so profound that just those 4 lines and all these principles are coming out of it. Now, this is quite important. Lord Mahavir used the following attributes to observe an entity from a relative point of view. So many questions were asked to Lord Mahavir, and he always used to answer, or most of the time used to answer them in this particular format. Dravya, Kshetra, Kal and Bhav. So what he's trying to say, any question which is posed to you, you can answer that question with reference to a particular substance, space, mode or time. So for example, a pen exists with a particular dravya, kshetra, kal and bhav, but it does not exist with respect to another dravya, kshetra, kal and bhav. All what he's trying to say is that right now, this is a pen, it's existing right now in this location at this particular point of time, and it's in this mode right now. So that's fine, but this could change. So when I'm describing anything, dravya substance becomes important. Like, am I talking about from an eternal point of view? Or am I talking it from a mode point of view? So that's very simple to understand. We have looked at it before. Dravya and bhav. So bhav is like paryay. Am I looking at it from a permanent aspect or from a modal aspect? And then from a particular space and kal. A pen has got infinite modes which are not expressible. Also, it is impossible to conceptualize or express simultaneously the existence and non-existence of something. Right now, can you tell me, I can tell you what this is, but can I also tell you exactly what this is not simultaneously? Because I can't. Because if this is a remote control, it is not a chair, it is not a table. So I cannot describe everything what it is not together simultaneously. So that's where the concept of inexpressible comes in. If it sounds very complicated, all what it means that something has got infinite attributes, and I cannot discuss all those infinite attributes right now. It takes time, it takes sequentially. So that's why the inexpressible comes in. Okay, now the next few verses are going to be, let me just read them through, and then let's see what they're discussing. The atoms of matter unite or become one to form a molecule in virtue of their qualities of smoothness and roughness. Smooth can unite with smooth, rough with rough, or smooth and rough with each other. Atoms with equal degree of smoothness and roughness, of conditioned smoothness or roughness, cannot unite with an atom of their own or of the opposite condition. I can imagine it's probably getting quite confusing to understand, but atoms of 2 or more degrees can unite. An atom will unite when there is a difference of 2 degrees of smoothness and roughness between it and atoms with which it can unite. Thus an atom with 2 degrees can unite with an atom with 4 degrees of smoothness or roughness, but neither less or more. I think it's going, if you just want to read through. Yeah? Okay, so if I just, so now let's summarize what those verses were trying to say. This is now going into Pudgal and particles of matter. And what it's saying is that, obviously scientists say that the smallest part could be an atom or a molecule. So, but according to Jains, the smallest particle of matter is known as a Parmanu. Now, a particular Parmanu, so that's particles of matter. So, a particle of matter can have particular roughness or smoothness. So, what it's trying to say is almost trying to bring chemistry into this, but at a very high level. So, let's just say these are the 2 smallest units of particle. This is rough and this is also rough. Can these 2 rough particles can unite one another? And also what's important to know that when you have got roughness, there's also intensity. So if you look at green, can you see that it's all got a color green, but the intensity in the left is very, very minimal. As more particles of green sort of go into it, it becomes a bit more brighter, brighter and brighter. So when you say this has got a green color, so if it's got green, it has also got different infinite varieties of green. It's got 1 intensity of green, 2 intensities of green, keeps on coming to infinite, so you can imagine. So what it's trying to say, this has got the smallest intensity of green, and this has got the smallest intensity of white, let's say 2 white particles. Can they join together? And the answer is no. If it's got the smallest 1 intensity of white, and of the same kind, 1 of white, will they join? No. 1 and 2, so this has got 1 intensity of white and this has got 2 intensities of white. So this has got 1 intensity of white and that's got 2 intensities of white. Will those 2 join together? No. They will not join. They will not join with 1 and 3. So the answer is no, no, no. So anything which has got 1 intensity of anything will not join with anything. So as you can see the pattern, 1 with anything will just no, 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 no. So what it's trying to say is that whether it's roughness, whether it's hot or cold, if anything has got the smallest, just 1 intensity of hotness or coldness or roughness or smoothness, that 1 intensity will not join with anything else, that 1 particle of matter. If it's got 2, so this has got 2 intensities of white and this has got 2 intensities of white, 2 and 2 will not join. 2 and 3 will not join because this has got 2 and this has got 3. So it's got a difference of 1, that will not join. It will only join when it's got 2 and 4. So this has got 2 intensities of white and this has got 4 intensities of white, then it will join. So there has to be a separation of at least 2 for anything to join. So this is like almost like, you know, chemistry or what the scriptures are telling us, that how will particles of Pudgal join to one another. So if they've got the same property, you need to have at least a separation of 2 intensities separation between them. Now of opposing kind, so this is a white color and say this is a black colored one. So there are 2 different particles, they're still particles of matter, but this is white and this is black, or rough and smooth. So if it's got 1, we know that if it's got 1 of white and 1 of black, they will not do because they're 1 and 1. This has got 1, but this has got 2. So this has got 1 of white and this has got 2. But because this has got 1 of white, it will not join with black. Because it's got 1. 1 will not join with anything else. 1 particle of Buddha. So 1, 1, 1, no. 2 and 2, yes. So whereas if they're both white, you needed a separation of at least 2. But if it's white and black, then you can actually say, yes, this has got 2. So 2 means, yes, I can join with something. This has got 2. And then they can start joining. So all those different verses are just trying to explain to you how particles of matter can join with one another.
What does it mean by roughness? Do you mean intensity?
Intensity, yes. Well, it's like hot and cold. So something is, this has got a quality of roughness and something has got smooth. So these are particles of matter with the quality of roughness or smooth. So can one rough and one smooth join together? So then if it's got 2 rough and 2 smooths, then it's got equal, it's rough and smooth. But if it's got 10 rough and 5 smooth, then it's more rough than smooth.
Okay, I don't know how you're measuring any of this. So
It's just arbitrary. So all what he's saying is because you have got rough and you've got smooth. if it's got a higher intensity of roughness and less of smooth, then if it becomes quite gross, then you can say, yeah, this table right now, it does actually feel quite rough, but it's also quite smooth. But if you started taking a knife and chopping, then it's going to become quite more rough. So the particles of roughness are now going to be increasing. But to what extent they do, this is trying to say that according from a spiritual, or at least from a Jain point of view, this is trying to say, what are the smallest particles of matter which can join with one another? Okay, I think we almost nearing it. So, substance is possessed of attributes and modifications. So let's look at it. This is now really the summary of this entire chapter 5. We're going to be finishing chapter 5 today. So substance has got qualities and substance, and within it's got modes. So we have seen that gold is a substance. Gold has got certain qualities. It's got this boiling point, melting point, and it's also got modes. Soul has got infinite bliss. So these are the qualities: infinite knowledge, infinite energy, and then it's got the different modes: human, animal, plant, heavenly and hellish. Take matter. Matter has got touch, taste, color, smell. So can you see that a substance has got qualities? All substance have got certain qualities. And substances also have got modes. So you can have modes: solid, liquid, gas, in terms of, like, for example, if it's water. Dharmastikaya enables motion to occur. Akash, quality of accommodation, and it is in a particular location at some time and it's not there. Time enables change to occur. So what's the quality of time? It enables change to occur. So that's the function, the utility of time, for change to occur. And what are the different modes? Past, present and future. So, looking at Kal, time. Kal is a dravya, but not an astikaya. Remember, horizontal extension was... remember, right at the beginning, I think probably a few lectures before, I talked about astikaya. So what we say is that there are 6 fundamental entities which Jains believe in, and they are called astikayas. Asti means something which exists, and kaya means extension. So like when you say kaya means body, but kaya means extension. So for example, soul extends. There's a height, there's a breadth, because soul can take whatever shape of the body. Time is not an astika in the real sense, because time you cannot say this height of time. Time is a horizontal extension, past, present and future. But everything else can have vertical extension. They can have length, breadth and width. Space has got length, breadth and width. Dharmastikaya, it's within the space. Dharmastikaya is there. Matter can take form, length, breadth and width. So all these have got vertical extensions. Time has got horizontal extension. Now, I won't spend too much time on this. There is actually a difference between what Svetambars and Digambars believe. Digambars believe that Svetambars believe that time is a concept. Svetambars actually believe that time, just as you say that is the smallest particle of matter, Digambars believe that there is actually a smallest element of time, kalana. It's like a particle of time. And it's the smallest particle, so it's actually particles of time. Jains don't believe, they don't say that time is got particles. So there's a slight controversy between both those faiths, but in essence it doesn't matter, because all what they're trying to say, the function of time is change, and so that's the quality of time, and the modes are past, present, and the future. Now, qualities depend upon the substance and are never without it. An attribute as such cannot be the substratum of another attribute, although of course many attributes can coexist on one and the same as substance, and at the same time and place. There cannot be an attribute of an attribute. Now, to explain this, I think we stay in a society whereby there is equality, and most people believe that right now there should also be equality of women. So last week we were very fortunate to have Nemish come here and explain to us the concept of Dharmastika and Dharmastikaya. So to keep the equality at large, why don't we have some lady to come and volunteer here to explain this concept? And any ladies who can come and volunteer? As I'll have to pick someone up by force.
You need a lot of strength.
Huh? A lot of strength. I'll actually let you do the honors. Can you just pick someone up?
I'm not going to pick anyone.
Come on, someone. Okay, let me give you a hint. Someone who's a good cook.
They don't stand up.
Yeah, that's right. Don't stand up.
Good. Come on. Be a sport, come on. Good shit.
Cooking related, so I'm sure all of you will know that. Okay, then if nothing's another, ask the headmistress' wife to come across. Nishma, you have to come along. If you just come up here. In fact, you're actually the right person. Because we understand that you're very good, I mean, you're good in all forms of cooking. Dal bhat shak, but most of us don't like dal bhat shak, but it's a dessert, which is the most important, right? So, can you tell us what is the process of making a cake?
So you'll start with the ingredients.
Yeah.
And you'll put them all together.
Yeah.
So do you want me to?
Any simple cake, any cake.
Okay,
any cake
so
okay.
you'll have the butter and sugar. You'll mix that with milk, and then the flour, raisin agents, and that's it. Put it into bake.
And then on the top, what would you put
On the icing, so once the cake's done, it's cooled, and then we'll have the icing.
Icing on.
Yeah.
Icing on the cake.
Yeah.
Okay, so in this instance here, if I were to go from, rather than bottom up, top down, can you actually create a cake with an icing first, and then what do you do, baking?
No.
And then you can put all the ingredients, so the ingredients of all the flour comes at the bottom.
No.
So you can't make a cake with that. So you do need a base, and then you build up on it, and then you can have the icing on top. Alright, thank you. So that's trying to illustrate the point that just as you've got a cake, which is a substance, the qualities rest on the substance. So you cannot have qualities, so qualities are like the icing on the cake. So if you remove the base, you cannot have qualities hanging loose. So if you had, for example, gold, if you just said shiny what? Shiny diamond, shiny what? So shining is an attribute, is a quality of something. But if you remove the base, then shining is what is shining? If you say knowledge, but okay, knowledge in itself, yes, the attribute of soul is knowledge. The attribute of soul is energy. But if you just said energy of what? Without the soul? So all what it's saying is that when you need to have a base, a substratum for qualities to occur. And so that's why this diagrams is very important. That all this substance, the qualities, so the substance becomes a substratum. It becomes the base, and you cannot have modes or modes just hanging loose. You need to have a base. So guns or attributes depend upon substance. And therefore it's also very important to say that whilst knowledge is an integral part of the soul, it is not the soul. I cannot say knowledge gnan atma. No, gnan is an attribute of the soul, is an integral part of the, I cannot remove soul and saying this is soul and this is knowledge. It's an integral part. It's an integral part of the soul, but it is still not the soul. So it's a quality of the soul, but it's not the soul. Energy is an attribute of the soul, but it's not the soul. But you cannot separate them out. So guns or attributes depend upon substance and are never without it. So you cannot have any quality without a substance. An attribute as such cannot be the substratum of another attribute. So you cannot say a quality which is going to be the substratum, it cannot be the base, or it cannot be be the substratum of another attribute. Although of course many attributes can coexist in one. So one substance can have many attributes. But that attribute cannot become the base of a substance. There cannot be an attribute of an attribute. So yeah, so this gives the definition of qualities. And if you look at the qualities, that's again, we can discuss this later. Jains have said that they are, in essence, two different qualities. One are called generic qualities across all substances. So all the 6 substances, there are some qualities across all of them. So those are known as universal qualities. The same qualities which are applicable to all of them. So for example, existence. All those qualities exist. So this quality of existence is across Akash, across Pudgal, across time, Dharmastika. So that quality is across all of them. But certain qualities, so consciousness, that's a particular attribute of the soul. It's not an attribute of the of Buddha. So universal qualities and particular qualities. So there we got the cake. So thank you very much, Nishma, for that. So substance is like the base of the cake. The icing on the top of the cake cannot exist without the base itself. Thus, this is the analogous. You cannot have icing just on its own. So quality is not the base. Quality is not the substance.
Sorry, Rajeev, can I ask, the quality doesn't it come according to your karma as well? Do you not accept the qualities depending on the karma you
So if you give an example.
say something like anger?
Yeah.
So if you like the anger is of the serpent,
Mm-hmm.
then you're always angry.
Yeah.
Then will that be passed down your next life if you're always angry, and that's something that will carry in next life as well?
Yeah. So that's also important. So as you said, so right now you can say the quality of the soul has got the anger mode, right? And that's because of the karma. And so that's our aim in life, to get rid of the karmas. But also one has to remember that right at the beginning we talk about the pure essence of the soul and the modes. So the pure mode of the soul is that it's without any of these defilements. Krodh, man, maya, lobh. Right now, it could be more in you, less in you, more in me, less in me. So that is all possible in our journey in life, is to make sure that we purify ourselves. So that's possible. So those qualities could be changing. So it could be changing until we get to the absolute supreme state of the soul, which is absolutely in that Sit Shila state. So those qualities can keep on changing depending on from one to the other. Before I was angry, now I'm not angry. So those can keep on changing.
So you can say the base is the soul, substance is the soul.
Yeah, the substance is the soul, yeah. Yeah, so that anger, where does the anger ride? Is this angry? No. So anger cannot rise. So the anger is residing on a conscious entity. So that conscious entity is the soul, so that's a base. And the anger is within that base. But, you can't say angry. What is angry? Angry what? Angry animal, angry dog. So that anger has to have a base. It's like when you're looking at English language, an adverb, you're saying running swiftly. Swiftly what? Running. So it's almost like an adverb. So you need to have a base to describe something. So you've got a verb and then you've got an adverb. But you cannot have an adverb without a verb. Okay, I think we roughly discussed this last time. The becoming of that is modification, parinam. All what it's trying to say is that each of these entities, there can be transformation but not transmutation. So space cannot become time, time cannot become space, transformations can occur within them. So time, past, present, future, matter, transformations can occur, but they cannot transmutate. Transmutate means they cannot just change into a different entity. So that's basically it. We've now completed chapter 5. So after the half term, we'll be looking at chapter 6. So if you look at the Tattvartha Sutra, this is now where the actual Jain philosophy starts, with all the Nav Tattvas and the Karma philosophy and the real essence of the Jain's spirituals. And until now, it was all the background. We looked at the Jain universe, we looked at the concept of the substance, reality. So this is all kind of the backgrounds, and now the actual essence of Tattvartha Sutra really starts. So Ashrav, Nirjara, Bandh, all these concepts about the Jain philosophy will start from chapter 6 onwards. Just some of the verses here, because the theme for today was eternality between permanence. So teachings of the enlightened ones are never out of fashion as they speak the eternal truth. Don't give up the eternal self for short-lived pleasures in the present. I mean, so this, if you really think about these concepts about substance and modes, it's very fundamental to the Jain philosophy, because if you look at many of the Jain saints who give discourses, many times they say, look at this world as like a drama. Everything is coming and going, but I'm just an observer. So the observer state is like almost like the permanent state. That I'm just thinking things are coming and going. So then you're not getting that involved, that attachment. So this concept of permanence and modes is very, very deep, very, very, it's got a lot of implications. which are some of the other, each day gives you a blank check to fill. Don't become so busy with the temporal that you forget to fill with the eternal. So we all get a bit busy with our day-to-day life, but we still need some time to connect to our divinity, to the eternal. Eternal truth is simple and easy, but due to all our attachments, we find it difficult. Guru is like a bridge. He has one leg in divinity and the other in the world, only so that seekers can cross over to reach the eternal. So can you see that the focus, which is almost like Acharya Kun, is really on the focus of the internal. How can I get to my eternal pure self? Jai Jai everyone.